professional sports at the end of the day are a grain of sand in your life's hourglass. And I'm throwing every kind of analogy right now. I'm feeling good about myself, but it's just a blink in the eye. So, you want to make sure that your kid, or if you're an athlete, listen to this, you're strong mentally and understand that just have fun. And that's all you can do. It's just a game. It's all it is.
Yes.
We put a lot of pressure on it and money behind it, but it's just a game at the end of the day. And it's eventually you can't play. We're all told to stop. So you got to make sure that you're strong mentally to enjoy the moments and enjoy the ups and downs of whatever it is, because it's not going to be perfect.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Masters of the Game. And today I get to introduce you to current NHL network analyst, host of the NHL Unscripted podcast, founder of Find Flow Athletics, and a friend of a friend, as we'll get into here in a little bit, but Jason Demers. Jason, thanks for being here with me.
So good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so good. Now, I'm sure you guys know of Jason, but let me give you a little kind of background, brag on you a little bit, Jason. But, highlight 13 years in the NHL, right? Played for, multiple organizations, including San Jose Sharks, Stars, Florida Panthers, Coyotes, Edmonton Oilers. You had a brief stop in the KHL as well, which is pretty cool. You've represented Team Canada twice, most recently in the 2022 Winter Olympics. You grew up in Canada. You played Quebec Major Junior Hockey with the Moncton Wildcats, if I pronounced that right, Victoriaville Tigers. Letiga, I can't remember what we said before. Sorry for my French, my poor French speaking skills here, Jason. And really cool thing, right, of, you get drafted in the 2008 NHL draft, 186th overall. And then you make your NHL debut on October 1st, 2009 against my hometown team, the Colorado Avalanche. And kind of the rest is history, as they say, right? But 13 years in the NHL. So quite a just amazing journey that I'm excited to jump into a little bit with you today. The ups and downs, ins and outs, and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it started off as a down. I was -1 in that first game in Colorado, but we won it 5-2. So I have the you remember your first game? I think it was... I remember I made a couple good plays, but yeah, it was. It feels like I just blinked and it was over. That's how fast it goes.
That's amazing. Well, I love kind of general question to start us out, but I mean, you've been through a lot, done a lot, but what's one of the greatest memories you have from your playing days?
Man, it's so tough when I mean, those first 3-4 years in San Jose were so incredible because, I kind of just got thrust into this team that was pushing for a Stanley Cup every year and was one of the best teams in the league and categorically had some just absolute Hall of Famers, superstars on that team. And here I was just, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 21-year-old, not knowing, where is up at times on the ice and really was counted upon to provide some lower end minutes, but provide some offense for a team that was just so high powered offensively. So it was incredible. A lot of parts very scary and because when you kind of come into a team with low expectations as a young guy, you're called upon to do some big things, but the pressure's not there as much. And obviously a majority of pressure and all pressures from within, but you come into this team and this franchise that's expecting to win. You're expected to perform at the highest level. And I always tell people that, practices and stuff like that were the scariest times because that's how hard these guys worked and how much was expected of us. And, funny, I'm saying all this and people are probably like, oh my God, this doesn't sound like great times, but it was great because you're winning and you were battling together. And it was some of my most favorite times was those early years because, we're young. You don't know what you don't know at that time of your life coming into the NHL. And you're just you're playing with just, you're just throwing caution to the wind and we're winning. And, you think I'm going to live forever. And it's just one of those weird cliches. You're just, all that experience and everything that you're going to get later in life that you wish you had when you were a youth. It's just all, it helps you, because you don't know what you don't know, but it also ends up hurting you because you make tons of mistakes and you step on a ton of landmines. But all that to say, it was a fantastic time.
Oh, I bet. Well, so talk to me about this a little bit, right? Because you're, playing, major junior hockey up in Canada. You get drafted, and then you go and get to make your NHL debut, right? You were playing for the Worcester Sharks in the American Hockey League. It's one of San Jose's affiliates, right? And then you get your debut. But when you look, I'm just really curious, that jump from, junior hockey to the AHL to the NHL, what were the biggest adjustments you had to make, like with those couple jumps that you made along the way that were a natural part of the process here? But
yeah, I mean, I guess not expecting to make it to the NHL allowed me to kind of develop, which, that I don't know if that it doesn't make sense, but it's, I was a 19-year-old. I wasn't drafted at that point.
Okay.
And typically you get drafted in your 17-year-old year, and I was passed over twice. So for me, I was like, well, it looks like I'm most likely going to university. And in my head, I was like, I'm going to go to Canadian University. I'm going to go play some hockey for, I'm from Montreal, so either McGill or Concordia, and very good programs. And, I'm not thinking about the professional side of it. And, my 19-year-old year, I get a call from the San Jose Sharks to go to a rookie tournament. And I go to a rookie tournament and kind of same thing. I'm just like, oh, this is like them tossing me a bone. Just go and have fun and enjoy it. And I went and, really had a great tournament. And, they just said, hey, we're going to watch you the rest of this year. So I was like, oh, you know what? I didn't do enough. Whatever, I'll go back down. But just that like little glimpse of, you want to call it hope, just that little glimpse. I had such a great year that year in junior. I won the scoring title for defensemen, and it just was a year where everything went right for me personally, not our team, but for me personally, and was just like, oh, wow. Like I just kind of really came into my own and my 20-year-old year, my 19-year-old year. So I was turning 20 and wasn't expecting to get drafted, and was watching. I always tell the story. I was watching with my dad for a friend of ours that was getting drafted. And, lo and behold, the 7th round comes through, and we get a phone call from San Jose, and they tell us, hey, we're probably going to take you here. And I was like, what? I'm like, okay, like I'm now part of an NHL franchise. My dad fell out of his chair, and I said, okay, it's now June 1st. And I'm like, wow, I got to get ready for an NHL training camp. And I get thrust into the NHL training camp. And once again, the pressure starts mounting. But for me, I was like, go into it, just kind of, knock their socks off. Like nothing's expected of me. They're just expecting me to come in, kind of fall on my face, get sent to the minors, or, not even get signed. And, ended up having a great camp, almost stayed to the end, and really shocked some people. And then they're like, well, listen, you didn't make it. We didn't expect you to get this far, but you're going to play in the AHL. And, I went from being a 19-year-old in junior to 20-year-old playing in Worcester, Massachusetts, having to get an apartment for myself, having to open a bank account, having to cash this check, buy a car, get title, get insurance, all of these things that, I was living with a billet family and never had a car up until that point. So I was like, holy crap, I gotta figure all this out and play good hockey, and ended up having a really good year in the minors. And, luckily I had some great veterans that helped me along the way, and they were super, super good at protecting me and teaching me the things I needed to learn. And then it was like, finished the year, had a good year, went into camp the next year, and they're like, you have a chance to make this team. And they said, there's a couple guys ahead of you. And I was like, okay. And kind of did the same thing. Like, I'm expecting to maybe go back down to Worcester in the AHL and, just going to have fun and enjoy myself and just play my ass off. Ended up doing it, making it out of camp, and really surprised a lot of people. Ended up making it out of camp and having like a great start to the season. And just really, surprising a lot of people in the NHL, and surprising myself that I was able to kind of dig deep and find that extra level and be in the NHL. And it was just like a pinch me moment, constantly for the first, month, where I was just like, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm here. I'm playing with Joe Thornton. I'm playing with, Danny Heat, Patrick Marleau, and Dan Boyle and all these other just amazing hockey players. And I'm like, I'm on this team. So, and it was, but it was a short 3 years for that. It just felt like I blinked and I was in the NHL and thinking, having thought I'm going to go play in university. So, and not make it or not even get drafted. So it's amazing how things can just switch on a dime.
Were you ready? Because I love this question, right? Of like, it's like those opportunities, like you get this opportunity to get drafted. It seems like a little bit out of the blue, but then you start surprising people and do all this sort of stuff. When you look back at like your 19-year-old self, like, or 17-year-old, 17, 18, 19, were you like ready? Like if you would have gotten drafted, like, were you ready? Like physically, mentally, like, did you need personally that extra couple of years to grow, develop, to just see things differently? Like what was kind of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, probably. At 17, I wasn't big, and I never was big, but I was super light, and I hadn't really found my game. I was also 17. I was playing in Moncton at the time, and my 16-year-old year, I blew up my knee, was missed like 3-4 months. The 17-year-old year, my next year, I wasn't playing much at all, and the coaches and the organization was going in a different route, and I kind of thought like this is it. And they ended up trading me at the deadline, which rarely happens in junior, but they traded me to the Victoriaville, and I ended up getting more and more ice time, and that's kind of how I developed. We weren't a good team. We didn't have, we weren't super successful as a team, but it just allowed me the opportunity to play a ton. And then that last year when I was 19, it was like I was one of the D-men, one of my buddies who I played with for 2 years, he left to go play pro, and they kind of like gave me the keys and were like, go for it, do whatever you want. And it was kind of one of those like, whatever you want to do it. And it was like fresh off of that kind of camp in San Jose. And it was just a perfect culmination, and, timing and preparation, it's all plays a part when you're trying. It's easy to say, yeah, I knew. I just think you have to get lucky, but you also have to be prepared and have put the work in, of course. But there is a level of timing and there's also a level of opportunity that you need to get from somebody to give you a chance. And that's kind of all it took for me, and just kind of got a lot of lucky bounces.
That's amazing though. Because I think you see different players plateau at different points, right? Or just have this growth that happens, and every athlete's slightly different, right? Of when that occurs and when they get their shot. And you hear stories like that, like people hanging on for a long time, then all of a sudden, like out of the blue, they get a shot, or sometimes not, right? But there's a timing so different.
Yeah, and I think probably mental maturity comes into play, like learning, and some kids develop faster mentally and understand the game and understand their game. And there are late bloomers. There's just kids that just take a while to figure it out. And I was always one of those kids that just took an extra few minutes. I was a fast learner, but things didn't come to me naturally. I had to work at everything and work at my, the mental side of my game as much as the physical side. And, all that maturity and it just required just a little bit of time. And luckily I was, able to have that time, and maybe not knowing that I had a chance, or not thinking that I had a chance, and thinking that it was going to be very much an uphill slog, allowed me to relax and just kind of play my game and be like, it's just leave it all out there. And for somebody like myself, who was always kind of a anxious person, and a lot of those things, a lot of times I can get in my own head, and that just kind of allowed me to get outside of it and just play. And I think that's when you're at your best as an athlete. It's when you're just playing.
Very true. And I want to talk about this a little bit, like kind of we get in every athlete, doesn't matter what sport you play, gets in your own head at points or many points during your career, right? Before we go there, you talked about discovering your game, and you really were able to do that in Victoriaville, and as you got more playing time, things like that. I'm just curious, because I think a lot of players, especially hockey players, like they're trying to figure out, like, where do I fit in? If I'm a defenseman, do I come up? Am I a scorer? Am I clearing people out of the front? Like, what's my game? How did that kind of work for you? And what would you describe yourself before? And then you kind of went through that transition and found your game.
Man, it was, for me, it was always the mental side. I was able to anticipate really well, and I'm never the strongest, never the fastest. But, the way I thought the game and saw patterns on the ice, I was able to kind of exploit. For me, was always something that I used to my benefit.
Yep.
It really was. I started as a defensive defenseman, and I, at times in my life, would find this sense of offense, coming up in minors. But I always played behind really good offensive defensemen, and kind of just as a complementary player, I would just kind of mold myself into whatever needed to be done. And it just kind of was one of those things. When I was in Victoriaville, they just were like, "You're going to have to carry the offense." And I was like, "Okay, I haven't really done that ever in my career." And you could look at my numbers in junior, and it was always like 15 points, 20 points, 20. And then all of a sudden it's like 70 points. And it was just somebody's telling me, "Hey, you can do it. Go and do it. Here it is, and take it." And, at times for myself, I was always a player that would kind of get comfortable and complacent, and wanted to be challenged, and wanted to have to prove something. So when I would at times fall into these roles and be like, "Oh, this is fine. This is easy. I can get this done," and play defense and not have to worry. But then I'd get frustrated. So, for me that year was just like having the reins handed over to you was like amazing as a young player, especially when you're 19 and, you have all this energy, and they're just like, "Do whatever you want. You're going to play 30 minutes a night and you can make as many mistakes. We're not going to care. And you can just play your game." And it just was like, it's just like, okay, amazing.
Yes.
Like, say less for a young athlete. You're like, perfect. Just, I can do what I want without consequences on the ice. Great. I'm going to have a fantastic time. And, ended up benefiting me so much just to be able to be in that situation on that team, even though we weren't, the best team in the league. It just was, for me, it just unlocked something in my game. And then I was able to try things. And when you try things, they'll tend to work more times than not. And especially not ever having consequences, they would work, 70% of the time, but every time it worked, it would give me more confidence and more confidence. So by the time we got halfway end of the year, I was, brimming with confidence. And then, you just carry that over into the next phase of your career, which is pro hockey.
Yes. I love that perspective, right? Because we all fear failure, right? And
of course,
every sport's a game based on failure. There are sometimes I'm trying to compare sports, but I'm like, every sport's a game based on failure. Like, you're going to screw up. Like, they have to happen during the game.
Yep.
Or they will happen, right? And how did you, like, over your career, keep it in perspective or manage? I guess, you talked a little bit about it, but did you have a fear of failure? And then if you did, like, how did you manage it throughout your career?
Poorly, probably would be.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I had a supreme, I had a very big fear of failure. And I just, it was just one of those things. I had a lot of performance anxiety, and, those years in junior, probably the performance anxiety those years before they kind of gave me the reins was all stemmed from me not wanting to fail. So playing it safe. And, when I went to the AHL, it was fine as well, because again, I had nothing to lose. And, for me, failing would have been fine, but then it's kind of, you make the NHL and they really say it's very hard to make the NHL or pro sports. It's even harder to stay. And that's where you see a lot of guys. They'll be so good in college. They'll be so good in high school sports. And then they get to the big time and they go, well, why can't this kid put it together? And because the mental game isn't sharp, and it was never kind of taught, and they were never given the tools to be able to deal with that much. I mean, you could say anxiety, fear of failure. I mean, there's so many words to coin it, but just that, like, you don't want to lose what you have. And once you get there, so you almost, some people get complacent, but some kids, athletes, they just hold on so tight that they forget how to play. And they're just like, well, I have to play this way because this is the way the team needs me to play. And, my whole career, I was the guy. And now I'm coming to this organization in pro where there's 90% of the guys are the guy. I have to fit into a lesser known role and be successful in that role. You see a lot of guys in the NHL, you have these kids that play junior and like what benefited me is I won the scoring title as a defenseman, but I understood how to conform to where I was going, because my first year in the NHL, I'm playing with Dan Boyle, and he's going to play 30 minutes a night and he's going to get all the power play time. So I'm not really going to get many opportunities offensively. So I have to make sure I'm not making any mistakes on the D side and capitalize when I get the one chance every 2 games, and was able to do that. And a lot of kids and athletes can't wrap their heads around that. And they just kind of withdraw, and they stop playing their game, and they forget how to make simple plays, and then it gets in their head, and then the mental side, and you see it happens time and time again. It's very hard for athletes to be able to just change your mindset. Like you have to have a mindset one way of like, never back down and confidence, but you also have to be able to shift your mindset into what's needed from you, because if your goal is to be the best player in the NBA or NHL, and you're this highly touted prospect and you're given all the opportunities, you have to have that mindset of like being the best. But if you're a guy that's coming in as a bubble guy, or you're kind of filling a role, you have to be able to adjust your mindset to that, to at least buy yourself time, because the longer you stay in professional sports, the more opportunity you're going to get. If you just kind of forget to adjust your mindset, or if you forget to kind of who you are as a player, I mean, it could be gone as quick as you got there. So you really always have to be able to adjust on the fly. If you're not these, number 1 overall picks that are going to get those opportunities, and they're going to get those chances, and they're going to have a way longer leash than you, because they've earned it in large in part. But, they've also it's a lot of the have and have nots. So as you just have to know where you stand, I think is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
And you have to really check your ego at the door and understand where you are in the pecking order, and figure out how to maximize that spot until you can kind of slowly build your way up.
So how did you kind of wrap your head around that, like during that moment, right? Because you had to, play that little role, 2 point, you're not on a power play right away. Take advantage of the opportunity offensively every 1 to 2 games, right? And you go score or create the chance, whatever, right? But how did you you personally work yourself through to be like, is it something like I'm going to focus on helping the team win, and like that eases the burden of like this pressure, I got to be someone I'm not? Like, how did you work through that?
Well, again, my first year, probably poorly, because I allowed that fear of failure to kind of overtake me. And, I played the first 35 games, and then I got sent down for about 20. And then I came back up, I came up and down the rest of that year. And, it was tough for me to swallow, because, I started my career, I think I had like 10 points in 10 games, and was like a dark horse for the Calder Trophy. And I kind of believed my own hype. And then again, when you're in the NHL, nobody knows who you are when you're a pro athlete, and you come into this league and you have that kind of, I still had a little bit of that, just the reins were given to me in junior and in the AHL. And I kind of had this swag, and was like, it doesn't matter if I, play bad or not. So I just kept making good play after good play. Then what happens is, you make a mistake, gets in the back of your net, you get screamed at. You then now all of a sudden go, oh, wow, okay, I got to make sure I don't do this again. Boom, you do it again. Okay, I made another mistake. It's in the back of my net. Oh, crap. Now the coach is yelling at me. I'm getting my ice time reduced. I'm getting pulled into the office, the day after the game, and being told that like, hey, you better pick it up or you're out of here. Now all of a sudden you got to think, you're young. You've never had that resistance. And they're saying, wait, you're going to take this away from me? Like, no, I earned this. I'm here. I should be here. But you don't realize at that age that like it's a daily grind, and it's a day you have to be on top of your stuff every single day. And that kind of fear of failure can consume people. And it did for me for that start of my career. And, I got to about 35 games and really struggled up and down and would have some great games, some bad games. And then they just kind of pulled me in and said, hey, you're going down to the minors. And, for me, that was like, a shot in the heart. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. I'm done. Never going to be back. And was able to go back down to the minors and reset myself, recenter myself, and find my game again. And then, I had a good playoffs when I came back up that first year. But it just was one of those things where you just kind of, I'm glad I had that experience early where, I had kind of everything right away and was like on this great team. I was scoring points. We were winning. Everybody thought I was the best, to being like, what the hell is this young kid doing out here? Like, get rid of him. And having to really deal with that and deal with that failure and make sure I make my way back and battle my way back and find my game and make sure it doesn't happen again and strengthen my mental fortitude, because, fighting back those fears of failure is really how you excel as an athlete. It's good to have a healthy dose of fear, because I think it does allow you to work and scratch and claw, but you also can't let it consume you, because if you do, you're going to make more mistakes. You're going to tense up. You're not going to be able to play the way you can play. And that's going to end up costing you more than it's going to help you.
Would you say, when you listen to your comments, that was it helpful when you, like, again, you got sent down, whatever, but like those first 10 games of your lights out, playing really well. And then, because that's what you were focused on, of like, how do I'm in my game, I'm in my flow, I know my role, like, let's go, right? And then you have, like, I'm going to make up numbers, 20 good shifts, right? In the first, many more than that, you know what I mean, though, right? But like 20 good things happen, let's say, and then like 2 bad things happen, meaning goals in the back or the puck to the back of the net, right? Did you have to, like, because sometimes we can focus on the 2 and not the majority of the good things that just happened. Like 20 great things just happened and we focus on the 2. Is that one of the keys of like refocusing? Like when you got down, you got to refocus on like the good stuff, the game, all that sort of stuff?
I would tell, kids and athletes now, yes, you have to have, thick skin and a short memory like a goldfish.
Yep.
But another thing I didn't handle great is, you asked at the start of this, like, what's like one of your favorite moments? And I was just doing a podcast the other day with an ex-athlete, and I was like, I could tell you more bad things that I did in my career than good things. And, that just goes to your point of most games and most athletes, their bad games, they'll have done 10 to 15 really good things in a game. But the 2 bad things that are so glaring, bad turnovers, bad mistakes, will overshadow everything. And you also have to make sure that you can forget about those moments in the game, because, a lot of coaches and organizations judge players on how they bounce back. And I think in life as humans, we judge people on how you can bounce back from adversity and how do you overcome those obstacles. And whether it be in a game or in life, it's you make a turnover, you get back to the bench. It's like, hey, your next one has to be on the tape. Don't compound the mistakes.
Yep.
Don't make one mistake turn into 2, into 3. And when you're young, that's what you do. You try to get that mistake back. It's like, don't try to get the mistake back. Just make the next good play, the next right play, and get back to your game. And I think a lot of people and a lot of, parents teaching their kids, or a lot of kids, they think that like, I have to get that mistake back. I made a turnover, now I have to go score a goal. It's like, listen, you make enough good plays, you'll score that goal, you'll throw that touchdown pass, or you'll make that interception, or you'll make that next basket. It's just like, you have to be willing to realize the mistake, address it, and then forget about it.
I that's such great advice too, right? It's that short memory, but some people are like, forget about it. It's like, but it's still in the back of my head. And it's like, well, address it. To your point, like, address it, look at it, watch it, look at the film, talk to your coach, talk to the teammate, like figure out what went wrong, and then be like, okay, got the information. Like, now go make the next play.
I would watch every, I would, and that was probably ended up becoming an unhealthy obsession, but I would watch my games and I knew before I even watched the film every mistake I made, or every bad, every play I wasn't in right position, and I would just go watch those and try not to repeat them. And, it worked for me for a while, but it ended up becoming kind of a negative habit that, instead of me just building on the good plays, I would just be trying to fix the mistakes. And sometimes that can help you, but it can hurt you as well.
Yeah, it's that balance, right? Of like,
Yeah.
you got to look at both, right? We want to repeat the behaviors that are helping us, and then obviously, if you can, fix the ones that aren't. And there's ways to do that, but that kind of healthy balance. I remember you reminded me of, you and I talked before this, but my son, playing hockey. I remember specifically he came home one game last year and he switched off of center to a wing like third period, and I'm like, what is he doing? Right? So from a father's perspective, I'm like, what is he doing? And we get home and I'm like, why'd you make the switch? And he goes, I was losing every face-off. And I go, no, you aren't. He goes, yes, I was. And I said, let's pull up the film. And we looked at it. And I kid you not, he won 6 out of 7. And I just wanted him to see it because of my perspective. And I could have been wrong in that moment. But it's like, okay, we'll just understand, right? Look at it. I wish the coaches would have shown him that, of course. But it is what it is. So,
well, yeah, I think at the youth level, I mean, you said it. I think it's a lot on the parents as well. Kids won't be given necessarily the most time because a lot of these, coaches are just trying to do their best, and
yes.
It's tough to manage all these kids. And, we don't know what kids are thinking, and there's not as much money in youth. There's money in you being spent in youth sports, but it's not like you have all the gadgets that you have in professional sports. So you have to kind of, as a parent, do that. But yeah, I mean, kids, you want to try to just make sure kids, when they're young, just have fun and make mistakes and learn from them. But also, as long as you're working hard and you're playing and having fun with your friends, but you're working as a team, and whether, if you're in an individual sport, as long as you're just working hard and you're sticking to that routine and you're not cheating the game, I mean, you can't be mad at yourself for anything you're doing, any mistake. We're all human. I mean, we make mistakes. I make mistakes every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I dropped this microphone before I got here and almost broke it. So to me, that's a small mistake, but you can't get mad at yourself and beat yourself up. You're going to drop the mic a lot in a bad way throughout your life, especially as a kid, and especially playing youth sports. You're going to make tons of mistakes, because I do think in youth sports, I'd probably say it's 90% mistakes and 10% good, but it's just making sure you understand that you're learning and you're getting better, and don't make the same mistake twice. And if you do, just keep trying to correct it so it doesn't become a bad habit.
So a couple of questions. I want to get into Findful a little bit, right, too, right? Because we talked before about performance anxiety, things like that. And, things have shifted, in your career now, like what you do now. And, but I'm curious, because you were on obviously really good teams, right? Again, you talk about the Sharks from like when you first got, drafted and you get your debut and playing in the playoffs, all that sort of stuff, right? And you play for some good teams. I'm sure you've had experience where the team's so, maybe not so good, right? Even going back to Victoriaville, all that sort of stuff. But how did you manage if you weren't playing with a great team, where there was a tough stretch, right? Let's just say, because again, the greatest teams might have a little losing streak in there, right? How did you, and how do you see the best professionals manage frustration? Because that can build up really quick and get out of control, right? But how did you manage that? How did you see the best do it just to stay more level?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to resort to your process and your routine. I think that's the only thing you could do. I was part of a team with the Coyotes. I think the record's been broken, thank God, since then. But I think in 2020, we lost 10, 11 games straight. At the start of the season, we lost our first 11 games. So you start the season, you get in training camp, everything's great, everything's hunky-dory. Guys are loving on each other. And then bang, right away, you lose 1, you lose 2, you lose 3, you lose 4. And then, the ways we were losing them too were, we had the lead in majority of those games and would blow them. So you're trying not to turn on each other, but you're trying to hold each other accountable. And then you're also looking at yourself in the mirror being like, what the hell? Are we ever going to win a game? Are we ever going to be successful? And you start doubting yourself. And then the coaches are screaming at you, the GMs. And then it gets to the point where everybody's just like, take a breath, resort to our process. And like I said, just make a little good play, make the smart decision, and it'll compound, and we'll eventually be able to finally get over the hump and win. And it's really, collectively as a team, I'm a big, now understanding what, manifesting and understanding what visualization really does. And if you're visualizing the negative things, like it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in ways that people go like, that's impossible. Like, I can't believe that happened, or can't believe they lost another game this way, and some weird bounce went the wrong way. And, that's honestly, that is you visualizing the negative aspects of your game as a team. And that just collectively, one person can manifest abundance. And I know this is getting a little like kooky and whimsical, but like, you can visualize positive things, but you can visualize negative things. And then two people visualizing the same thing will happen faster than just if one, and vice versa on the negative side. Now you times that by a team of 20 that are all fearing failure. Well, let me tell you something. That is some of the most powerful emotion, that fear, and you can feel it on the bench, and it zaps you, and it just makes you feel like you're 1 foot tall, and you just can't get out of the quicksand that you're in as a team. And that really is a tough thing to get out of. And then once it happens and you win that game and people finally say enough's enough, you like feel the weight being lifted off of everybody. But like I said at the start, it's really just trusting the process, trusting your routine, and making sure that those are just dialed in, your work ethic, your attention to details. And that is just all you can really lean on in those moments, and put the fear out as much as you can, and visualize only positive things. And it's a lot easier said than done, but it's just proven something that's kind of how you get out of it. But it's tough, man. I still, I talk about that 11, 12 games. I mean, you feel so insignificant, and you feel so bad, and the world just could not be in any worse shape because you can't win a game that's a kid's game. And that's just so funny when you retire and you think back to how many days you kind of lost to letting that fear take over you, because it's just a kid's game. But we forget, and those are reminders that you got to trust the process and trust your details.
I think that's great advice, right? Go back. I hear time and time again, right, with talking with athletes at the highest level, it's like trust the process. It's almost like that's the only
cliche.
Thing you can control. Like, it's cliche, but it's like that's literally the only thing you can control. So the visualization, the shots, the film review, the like whatever. It's like meeting with your coaches. Like, you have to go back to the stuff you can control, because that's where corrections are made, and you start building that momentum. Not easy, heck no, but it's like a key ingredient to this little formula of success, right?
It is, and it's just repetition.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. You just keep repeating the process until something works.
Exactly.
And if it's not working, change the process, but make sure that you make sure that you're just repeating a routine, and we're creatures of habit, and you have to just live and die by that habit. And the ones that do it the best are the ones that are the best, and they're able to really, there's no one that just wakes up and as Ricky Bobby says, piss is excellence. There's just nobody that just wakes up and does it. You got to put the work in.
Yeah. Even Ricky Bobby, folks. Even Ricky Bobby.
Quoting Ricky Bobby.
Hard worker. Let's talk quickly. I know I want to be aware of your time here, but talk to me about Findful a little bit, and why now?
I mean, why now? I feel like I'm 10 years late just looking at the state of youth sports right now, and the state of our youth. But, I had severe performance anxiety. We touched on it a little bit. It got really bad throughout my career, and, I abused alcohol and drugs to try to numb it before games, after games, night before games. I just had a severe fear of failure, and, it really made it tough for me. I had a lot of injuries kind of come out of it. We talk about visualizing and, visualizing the negative stuff. I mean, I would have just horrible thoughts before majority of my games, and would not be able to shake it. It just became a bad habit for me. So, my last 2 years of my career, I really sought out trying to fix that, and sought out the mental side of it, and fell into breath work, fell into journaling. I had some good teachers along the way, and really just tried to find some semblance of a routine for the mental side of the game for me. And, when I blew my back out probably 2 years before I retired, and right before I played in the Olympics, and that was kind of my, aha moment of like, you really need to fix this, because that injury was all through anxiety and stress. I just was without a contract and was so anxious and nervous that I wasn't going to get something. Was working out so incredibly hard, 7 days a week, twice a day, just killing myself, and just a fluke way blew my back out, and ended up my body telling me that like, you're pushing it way too much. And I wasn't pushing it in the right frame of mind, and you can't work out in that kind of space of fear. You got to work out just flowing and just feeling that rhythm, and being happy that you're able to play a kid's game and compete in a kid's game. So, I ended up finding journaling, finding breath work. I ended up going playing in the Olympics, ended up making it back into the NHL for one game to kind of get my milestone 700 games, which was something I was looking for.
Amazing.
I had ended on 699 before I blew my back out, and wanted to get 700, and was able to do it. Was able to get there in the right frame of mind. And I feel I was in a happy place when I did. Still made a huge turnover that game, but was able to shake it off and have a good game.
Yep.
But then I decided to retire, and when I retired, I started kind of doing some inner work and really working on the breath work side of things, and working on the journaling, and trying to deal with my anxieties, and ended up kind of realizing that I felt a lot of that when I was 15, 16, coming up in youth sports, and going to play junior away from home. And, I just had these really bad moments of anxiety, and I had a lot of night terrors, and when I was a kid, and would wake up in the middle of the night not knowing what was going on, but was a very happy-go-lucky person in the day. So to me, it was like subconsciously my body releasing the stress valve at night and getting out that stress. And I didn't even know that I was internalizing everything. And so I, sought this out, and I said, you know what, I want to bring this to kids in some way, shape, or form. And I said, what's the best way to do it? And, it's going to be through a web-based app. It's going to be breathwork and journaling in a way that kids can digest. And we're really preaching simplicity. I think you look at a lot of the tools out there right now for kids, and the camps, and
yes.
Everything's so complicated for kids, and we're treating kids like they're professional athletes. And not to say that you need to teach them a professional athlete mindset or routine, but at the end of the day, they're kids. They need to play. They need to have fun. They need to enjoy the game. They want to love the game. Because if you look at the numbers in youth sports right now, 70% of kids age of 13 are quitting sports. That's not a number I want to see. I don't think anybody should want to see. Sports is where you learn life lessons. It's where you learn hard work. It's where you learn friendship. And it's where you learn how to overcome adversity. So we have the journaling and breathwork aspect to help kids, but we're trying to tie in a content portion, which is just athletes and mental coaches talking about overcoming adversity and talking about their stories, to tell them like, hey, you're not alone. We felt these things. We're able to make it to the highest level, but also like, listen, it's all the same message that I'm saying now, which is have fun, work hard, just give it your all, but just have fun with it. Sports are meant to be fun. It was designed that way. I think we've lost the mark a little bit as adults of agencies recruiting kids at 12, 13 years old. The money parents are spending on kids, making them sports specific. Like, I think that's such a detriment to these kids, and we're doing a disservice to them, and not only as athletes, but as people, because, I can sit in front of any parent and tell them probably categorically, like, your kid's 99% not going to make pro sports, but you have a 99% opportunity to make them the best version of themselves and mentally. And that's what you should be striving for. And whether they make pro sports or not, they're going to be set up for success anywhere they go in life. There's a lot of guys I know that have played professional sports and didn't learn any life skills or learn any mental skills to take them after sport. And then they're just lost. So it's like the main thing for all of us as adults and parents is you want your kid to be as strong mentally and as resilient as possible, and able to handle anything life throws at them. Other than that, I mean, it's up to them, and it's up to their work ethic, and you can't push them into it. you can nudge them and push them for hard work, but like that love of the game is going to be something that they're going to, grow. They're going to kind of, I want to use the word like harvest it themselves, but that's going to be something that's from within, we can help them with the mental side and understanding how to, process emotions and process failure, process success, and just collectively, like, you're going to have a bunch of kids that are just ready to take on the world. And I think that's what we should be focusing on. And sports was the perfect avenue for that, 20 years ago. And I just feel like a lot of money has come into it, and it's become very expensive. And it's now with the NIL deals and being able to sign kids earlier. Now we're really putting stress on kids that, they don't need that stress. So let them worry about it when they're 16.
Yes.
Let them know when they're like, let them get until they're 16, 17, they can, be sports specific. But until then, just learn to play every sport, learn to be an athlete, learn to have fun, and just learn to be just strong mentally.
Yeah, 100%. And, for all of you kind of watching right now or listening, we'll put all the links to obviously social media so you can contact Jason, all that sort of stuff, but then also to find flow, because again, this is why you and I are aligned of like, how do we teach these younger individuals, right? You may be an adult watching and you're still going to benefit from this, right? Journaling, breath work, the mental side.
Oh yeah.
And give them the tools to like if you're a coach, use it. Like, it's like we can all, me included, like continue to develop and grow in those areas. And so we're going to, please check back and we'll make sure we have all the links to find flow, everything that's going on there. It's just huge. Like, use the tools you have. It's simple. Jason and I talked about it on the side. Like, it's simple, easy to use. It's not 15 hours a day. It's like a couple minutes, a couple times a week.
We're trying to make it 3 days a week, just, 3 days a week, have it be fun, but, highlighting the athlete storytelling. And, there's a lot of good podcasts out there right now, and there's a lot of good companies. You Think is one of them. And, I think there's another one as well, but they're talking directly to coaches and parents. I mean, being able to talk directly to kids and giving them tools, to help on top of everything. And breathwork and journaling is something simple you can do on your own, but and parents can do it alongside their kids and really learn about their kids too, and learn if they're stressed, if they're feeling something that the parents didn't know, because I think we don't give our kids the benefit of the doubt that they do feel deeply and they do feel emotion, and they may not be able to process it as well as us at that young age. But neither were we when we were 13, 14, 15. But having those tools to be able to have the capability to process that, I think, is so important. And I think it's, I know adults that are 30 years old that don't know how to process emotion. It's just, giving people that opportunity and giving kids that opportunity, I think, is so incredibly important.
Oh yeah. Number one complaint I hear from coaches today, outside of dealing with parents.
There you go.
True number one is that they feel kids struggle dealing with adversity today. And I think that's why I love what you're doing, Jason, because it's focused on how do we build resilient individuals.
Well, why is that? We asked that question. It's like, why is that? Well, we've put such an emphasis on technology and showing kids that you look on Instagram and you're going to feel awful that you're not doing enough, not only as a parent, but as a kid. And you're just getting reinforced that, you're not good enough. And, having something that kids can go to express that and get that out. And emotion is really just energy, and you got to be able to move that energy. And if you leave it inside and you don't talk about it, you don't deal with it, it becomes stagnant, it becomes heavy. And just telling my story, like, that's really what happened to me. And it manifests into a lot of different things, and it turns into a lot of things. And, people might listen to this and be like, breathwork, you're like, it's like woo woo or something. And I'm like, you'd be surprised at how hard breath work actually is. And it's called breath work for a reason. It's very difficult. It's like a workout. And I think people underestimate it as a tool to be used. As parents, we spend on strength coaches, nutritionists, all the best skating coaches for hockey, but not much on the mental side.
Yes.
And, we talk about overspending. We overspend on a lot of those other physical things when we don't take care of the mental thing first, which is making sure your kid is resilient and
Yes.
master of adversity. And once you get that, I think the rest will fall into place very easily.
So true.
And we're just hoping. You talk about finding flow, and the name of it, Find Flow, is just you hear flow state, and you hear that when you're in the zone. And I categorize it as I do think life, and I do think is you kind of flowing on a river and you're going downstream, and when things get choppy and you're thinking negatively and you don't know where to go, where's the exit, you don't know what next stroke to take. It's really about calming down your nervous system and understanding those choppy waters so you can navigate yourself into the calm water and find that flow. And
yes.
It really is something that is not talked. It's starting to be talked about a lot. But again, trying to find tools and simple tools that kids can understand and digest, I think, is the next step and next wave of this. Because, I've seen some apps and seen some things, and I'm, as a 38-year-old, I'm confused just looking at that, being like, I don't even know where to go with all this. It's like,
right.
let's simplify for kids and make it very easy and ask them simple questions. And I think it's something parents can do without even using this app, but just asking your kid, how was your day today? How'd you do? And what was something you did good and what was something you did bad?
Yep.
And then, okay, how can we fix that for tomorrow if it was bad? And if it's good, how can we reinforce that? And then just those little things compound over time. And, I was talking to somebody about this, and they're saying, they're kind of asking me how it's going to work. And I was like, I'm really just trying to dig just a grain of sand every day. And all you're trying to do is just a grain of sand. And then over 2 years, you've now dug all the way to China. You dug, you dug a 20 feet hole of positivity and good habits. And, I think we got to get it all done in day one, but you got to start on day one. And then if you just kind of take a baby step every day, and teach your kid that over time, compounding positive baby steps, you're going to run a marathon, you're going to do whatever you need to do, and you're going to be physically and emotionally adept to handle whatever kind of life or sport throws at you.
So very true. And I know it's a good way to wrap this up, because I know we both got to roll, but it's funny, if you haven't rafted on a river ever before, what's interesting about it, what you reminded me of, is when the waters do get choppy, the first thing they tell you, the guide in the raft, is listen to me. And it's about calm, but it's more important, get back to the process. Listen, do the strokes, we'll get through this. So very
100%.
simple, right? So listen, pay attention. The second thing they tell you is, if you do happen to fall out of the boat, you have a life vest on, you typically have a helmet on, point your feet downstream. So in case you hit a rock, your feet hit it, you'll be fine. And we'll grab you at the shore here in a little bit. And it's that.
We'll see you down there.
That simple, but it's so simple, and so the simplicity, right? Of like, oh, okay, I get it. But listen, follow the process. It's everything you're talking about, like throughout this episode, which I know Find Flow is going to be a huge part of. So
yeah, just
love that.
Can't be, I like compounding mistakes and simply, it really is. I was talking to a friend, and I used it a lot when I played. It was just the KISS method of just keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
And it's really, it applies to everything in life. And we always overcomplicate things as humans and athletes. And
yes,
it's really simple. And you just got to kind of do good things every day that'll benefit you mentally, physically, and over time, you're going to separate yourself from everybody. And if not, and you don't make pro sports, at the end of the day, you fall out of the life raft. I mean, you're going to get to the shore eventually. And professional sports at the end of the day are a grain of sand in your life's hourglass. And I'm throwing every kind of analogy right now.
I love it.
Feeling good about myself, but it's just a blink in the eye. So, you want to make sure that your kid, or if you're an athlete, listen to this, you're strong mentally and understand that just have fun. And that's all you can do. It's just a game. It's all it is.
Yes.
We put a lot of pressure on it and money behind it, but it's just a game at the end of the day. And it's eventually you can't play. We're all told to stop. So you got to make sure that you're strong mentally to enjoy the moments and enjoy the ups and downs of whatever it is, because it's not going to be perfect.
Yes, I love that. Well, I know we're at time here, so I want to be cognizant of that. And first and foremost, thank you for spending your time with me today. And I know this is going to be the first of many conversations you and I get to have kind of off outside of this. But thank you so much. And we're going to put links to everything, Findful, Instagram, LinkedIn as well, so people can connect with you and make sure they spread the word as well with these tools that we all need just as human beings, but especially youth athletics as well. So thanks so much, Jason. I just appreciate you.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be interviewing you now.
So fun. No, it's so good. And to wrap us up, for those of you watching, thank you as well. Just love spending time with you, getting to talk to the best of the best in my world. And please share this with your family, friends, especially your hockey community, you San Jose Shark fans, Coyotes, Oilers, all the fill in the blanks there.
The Shacks.
But just thank you for your time today. We'll see you on the next Masters of the Game interview. Thanks, everybody. Sweet. I just realized too, I have a 2:00 or right now a meeting with a client of mine.
Okay.
Do you want me to ping you here in a little bit and jump back on and record or what? Or
can we do it a little later tonight? I have to run at 2, and then I might have something at 3 or 4. But yeah, ping me when you're done, and we'll jump back on. It'll be 20 minutes. I'll send you.
Cool.
I'll send you the questions too.
Yeah. No
so
worries.
you can. So it's super easy.
Cool. Love it, man.
Awesome, buddy. I appreciate you.
All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right, thanks,
talk
Jason.
soon. See ya.